Hi, I hope all is well with you and that you're staying safe. This week in Eretz Yisrael, we are reading Parshas Behar. The beginning of the Parsha begins with the halachos of Shemitah, which this year in Eretz Yisrael, we are celebrating, we are observing. And the brunt of the burden of Shemitah really falls on the farmer, who's commanded to let his fields lie fallow. No plowing, no planting, no harvesting, nothing. He just has to wake up in the morning and just look at his field and do nothing. It's a very, very tough mitzvah, but it's a mitzvah that's based on emunah and bitachon. Nevertheless, the Rabbi Shalom tells the farmer and tells all of us that if you observe Shemitah properly, I promise you that I will give you enough food to last for 3 years. I will give you food the year before Shemitah, year number 6. As we all know, Shemitah is the 7th year of the agricultural cycle. And during the 6th year, the Rabbi Shalom says, I will give you enough food for year number 6, year number 7, and even year number 8, since you can't start plowing or planting until the year after Shemitah, year number 8, so you won't have any food in the beginning of that year. I will give you enough food for 3 years. And Chazal teach us that during the time of the Beis HaMikdash, there was plenty, and we observed many Shemitahs. But as time went on, for whatever reason, farmers stopped keeping Shemitah properly. And Chazal teach us that one of the reasons for our being exiled from Eretz Yisrael is for the fact that we didn't keep Shemitah. The question is, why did they stop? The Rebbeinu Shalom promised a bounty before Shemitah would even begin, and he delivered. They had for years and years and years. Everything was fine. Everything was going perfectly well. And yet the farmers stopped keeping Shemitah properly. And the answer is given by Dr. Twersky, Olav Shalom, who used to always talk about working with alcoholics. And one example that he cited was an alcoholic that he met who unfortunately, after stopped being an alcoholic, curing himself for many, many years, once again became an alcoholic. And Dr. Twersky asked him why. What happened? You were doing so well for so many years. Don't you remember that when you were an alcoholic, your marriage was falling apart, you lost your job, your children didn't respect you, life wasn't worth living. And then once you cured yourself, life became more meaningful. And everything about your life was as perfect as you wanted it. Why did you start drinking again? And the alcoholic looked at Dr. Twersky and he said, I thought I'd get away with it. Just one drink. That's all I wanted. Just one drink. And he threw everything away with that drink. And the farmers during the time of the Beis HaMikdash, before we were exiled, even though they had everything, they became lax. And they woke up and they saw their fields lying fallow. And they said, I'll just plant a little. I don't know if the Rebbeinu Shalom really minds, just a little. And they forgot the promise of the Rebbeinu Shalom. And they thought they'd get away with it. And I think if we think about it, and the lesson that we can learn is, does it apply to our lives? How many times do we find ourselves in different situations? One situation perhaps is an individual who's starting a business and he's very concerned, he's investing a lot of money. And he turns to the Rebbeinu Shalom and he davens with tremendous kavanah. He says, Rebbeinu Shalom, please help me. Allow my business to succeed. I'll be good. And he is good. And he observes the mitzvahs properly. And he does everything according to halacha. And he's successful. And after a while, he forgets. Where did his success come from? It came from the Rebbeinu Shalom. You have an individual who's looking to get married and is interested in shidduchim, And the individual is going out with various individuals and it's not working. And he or she turns to the Ribbono Shel Olam and says, Ribbono Shel Olam, help me find my zivug. And I will be good. And I daven, and I give tzedakah, and I do chesed, anything to help me find the zivug. And he or she eventually is blessed, and they're happily married. And eventually they forget, where did the bracha come from? Who do they owe everything that they have to? And they start cutting corners. The davening is a little less, with a little less kavana. The tzedakah is a little less. We're human beings. We forget. You know, forgetting is really a double-edged sword. There's certainly a bracha to forgetting. We forget pain that we had in our lives, and it allows us to move on. But the negative and the downside is we forget those things that are important. We forget that everything that we have comes from the Ribbono Shel Olam. And we can't fool the Ribbono Shel Olam. He knows what's in our mind. He knows what's in our hearts. He knows when we're sincere, and he knows when we're just giving lip service. And if we were sincere when we were davening for our parnasa, or we were davening for a shidduch, or whatever it might be, we can't forget that during those hard times, we realized where the bracha had to come from. And we have to remember that even in the good times, that same bracha can only come from the Ribbono Shel Olam. And if we take that message, the message of Shemitah, not to make the same mistake that unfortunately was made so many years ago, which is why we're still in Galus. One of the reasons why we're still in Galus. And Mitzvah Hashem, the Ribbono Shel Olam, will answer our sincere tefillos and our sincere commitment of observing the mitzvos to the best of our ability. And as we continue to move in a positive direction, the Ribbono Shel Olam should answer those tefillos, should be Mashiach in our time, Behar v'yameinu. Have a wonderful day and a meaningful Shabbos.